Welcome to 412 Sports Talk, the number one podcast for Pittsburgh sports. Steelers, we talk it. Penguins, we talk it. Pirates, yeah, we talk it. With the biggest guests.
Bob Pompiani, Pittsburgh legend. Mayor Bill Peduto, the mayor of the city of Pittsburgh, is on with us. Doran Dickerson, West Allegheny legend.
Trey Essex, welcome.
Available on iTunes and Spotify. Hosted by Mad Chad Nolan.
It over too much. Well, now he's not turning it over at all.
And Eddie Provident.
We've got the best team in football.
And now, 412 Sports Talk.
Look, Chad, we've got a lot to talk about in the Pittsburgh sports world. Not only is there drama going on in the high school side of things, but Julian Edelman announced his retirement because the Patriots released him this week. And there is a lot of talk about Julian Edelman being a Hall of Famer. And I mean, he played for the Patriots and he was one of Tom Brady's go-to wide receivers. So it must be true, right, Chad?
So was Deion Branch.
Yeah. So I'm going to, this is one of those times where I wind Chad up and I let him roll. Your thoughts on the whole Julian Edelman thing?
So it's absurd to even suggest him being a Hall of Famer. To me, for one thing, they've already ruined all these Hall of Fames because they let too many people in there as it is. Every year there's guys that get in. You go, yeah, they were a good player. Like, is being a good player, like, should that be a Hall of Fame? Even if you're a really good player, to me, the Hall of Fame is the best of the best. And the more you dilute it by adding more people in there, the less it means. There's guys in there right now that I would, if I had my say, I'd pluck them out. If you're going to allow so many people and you're going to start advocating for guys like Julian Edelman, then at least do it in tiers. Because, like, if let's say hypothetically that something stupid happened and Julian Edelman got in, you're telling me that he's the same kind of Hall of Fame player that Jerry Rice is? That's what we're saying. Because he's going to have a bust and Jerry Rice is going to have a bust. At least make tiers like these are the greatest and then these are all the guys who are good. But even then, it's an absurd notion. Never, ever, ever has anyone been like, hey, who are the 5 best receivers in the league? And throughout Julian Edelman's career, his name would have never, ever appeared. Larry Fitzgerald, Terrell Owens. Here's the thing. I'm not even being biased because I can't stand the guy personally, even though I'm a Steelers fan. But Hines Ward literally deserves to be a Hall of Famer before Julian Edelman's name would ever be mentioned. Hines Ward has more Pro Bowls, more yards per catch, more yards per game, more touchdowns per game, more career receptions, more career receiving yards, more career touchdowns. Yep. Every single category you could rank them in, Hines Ward betters Edelman, and it's not even really close. Like, Edelman has like what I would call good numbers for like a number 2 receiver. Like, that's what he has 600. He doesn't even have 700 career catches.
And, you know, I was listening to, I can't remember if it was Marcus Spears or Damian Woody on ESPN, but whoever it was made a really good point. And it was basically, don't make me talk about Julian Edelman being a Hall of Famer because he's not.
Right.
I want to celebrate his career. And if you make me do that, I'm not going to be able to.
Pat McAfee, which I was really disappointed with, was like, he said, well, the way I see the Hall of Fame is it's like a celebration. He's like a stoner. It's a celebration, man, of football. Then we're talking about two completely different things.
It's 2 different things.
If they have in the Hall of Fame like memorials of like all the Patriots dynasty and stuff, and you want to throw up Edelman's like a picture of his catch and hang his jersey in there, that's fine.
There's all kinds of stuff up there. Yeah,
and that's fine. You can pay homage to him there, and he did. He was a key contributor to those teams. Here's where I'm getting pissed at is the rings. And I had some idiot arguing about another player today in my mentions about the rings, comparing player A to B, and they have rings, and they have rings. Winning a championship is a team accomplishment. You're telling me that Julian Edelman is better than Calvin Johnson because he won rings. That is the stupidest goddamn thing you could ever say in your life.
Absolutely.
winning. So Dan Marino, Trent Dilfer, Eli Manning, Joe Flacco, they're better than Dan Marino, right? You sound stupid. Go play sports. You and I both played hockey. How many times did we maybe outplay a team, but they still won because they had the better goalie?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe, we had our goalie played his ass off, but we couldn't score or do anything right, and we kept playing bad defense. You can't judge individuals based on team results. I wish they would stop counting wins as any kind of for pitchers, quarterbacks, goalies, because the better pitcher loses way more often than they should. Like, I look at this stand, I'm like, why the hell did he get the loss? He had six innings pitched, and he only had one earned run, and he lost the game. It's like, that doesn't make any sense to me. He didn't lose the game. His team lost the game.
Yeah, and for me, like, do I think that Edelman was a good football player? Absolutely.
Good.
He was a good football player.
Good.
Did he have great moments? Yeah, he had great moments. But does a good football player with great moments equal a Hall of Famer? No. A great football player with great moments is what you want in the Hall of Fame. And I don't think Julian Edelman was that. And I think it's a shame for guys like Julian Edelman that as soon as they retire, we move to this conversation, because rather than being able to say, man, he was a good player, he was good at what he did, and rather than like giving him the kudos that he does deserve, now guys like you and I have to say, no, he's not a Hall of Famer, and here's why he's not. It has to be a negative thing.
Rather than just letting people,
rather than just saying, man, he was good, and let's appreciate what he did with his career. People are so quick. Here's
some factors that he has going for him, and people aren't going to like this. But one, is the Boston media. Whenever Boston has a huge market, so they can create news like this. I mean, some of those remember like the Red Sox guys, like Johnny Damon and all those guys, they would talk about how like collectively they were great and they had some great players in their team, but every single one of those like key contributors to those World Series teams, they would talk about how great they were, and I'm like, no, they were just a good team. Like those guys weren't individually great. It was just a good team. So the Boston thing, the Tom Brady thing, obviously, that was Gronk. Meanwhile, Gronk was his number one receiver. Like Gronk's a slam dunk Hall of Famer. If you want to have that conversation, he might be the best tight end to ever play. And then also here's part of it that I was thinking about that people aren't going to like, bro. He was a receiver, and he was a short little white guy, and there are a lot of white guys that like that. He was an underdog, and people like that. That is a factor. I was having like, oh, he's better than Hines Ward.
He was the one who played lacrosse, right?
Who, Edelman?
Yeah, was he the one that played lacrosse?
Yeah. It's a good story. Like you look at him and you go, yeah, man, he if anything, Julian Edelman overachieved as an NFL player. He overachieved because his skill set is not that of what I would consider to be a top, NFL receiver.
Yeah.
And these moments, again, I had the same conversation about Marc-Andre Fleury. Everybody was quick to say, Game 7 against – listen – just because you were great in this game or this game, I'm judging these players on their collective body of work. Mm-hmm. So that is a short sample size. Santonio Holmes won a Super Bowl MVP. In fact, go watch the 2009 postseason, the highlights of the Steelers, and Santonio Holmes was incredible.
Yes, he was.
He was incredible.
Yeah.
Does that mean he's a Hall of Famer?
No, not at all.
He might have been the best player that postseason, in the NFL, outside of Larry Fitzgerald.
I wanna bring something up that you talked about earlier about the wins and losses thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give a shout out to a friend of mine, one of my best friends. His name's Mike Larko. You can follow him for any kind of baseball content at Larko _9, LARKO _9. Huge baseball fan, has a lot of good Pirates takes, very informative when he does tweet about baseball. But he retweeted one, and his tag on it was people think wins and losses is a good judgment of pitchers. All right, I'm gonna not give you the names, okay? I'm just gonna give you the stat lines, okay? Mm-hmm. Since 2018, okay, pitcher A has 25 wins with a 2.04 ERA and an 11.55 strikeouts per 9. Okay, that's pitcher A. Pitcher B, 26 wins, 4.66 ERA with an 8.85 Ks over 9. Pitcher A is Jake DeGrom. Pitcher B is John Gray. Okay, Jake DeGrom played for terrible Mets teams and did not get any help. Only had 25 wins, but was a dominant pitcher. John Gray was a decent pitcher, is still a decent pitcher. He's not bad, but he has one more win than Jacob DeGrom in the last 2.5 years. But his ERA is more than double what Jacob DeGrom's is, and almost less than 3 strikeouts per 9. So if you put Jacob DeGrom on a team like the Astros or a team like the Yankees or a team like the Dodgers, Jake DeGrom probably wins 25 games.
Absolutely.
In one season, not over 3. And so that's, to your point, wins and losses, while it's a factor when you're judging success, that's judging the success of a team, not a player. You can't, like you said, does that mean that because Trent Dilfer won more Super Bowl than Danny Marino, or Warren Moon, then all of a sudden he's a better quarterback than those two?
Aikman won 3 of them, and I'll still
right.
say that Dan Marino was a better quarterback than Troy Aikman. Now,
it's asinine, yeah.
The other argument is, now there's a different argument to this, is would you rather have Julian Edelman's career, or would you rather have like Calvin Johnson's career, where Calvin Johnson at one point was considered probably the best receiver, most athletically gifted receiver of his career, but he played on a shit team and never even saw – I think he played in the postseason once maybe or twice. Yeah. And Julian Edelman was not really the guy, never really considered one of the best at his position, but he was, gifted the ability to play on these Super Bowl championship teams and play with a great quarterback. That's going to be a different answer for a lot of people, because I would rather be considered the best of the best. But some people are going to say, no, I'd rather have those championship rings. But again, in my head, I'm like, well, those championship rings are team accolades. I'd rather be considered the best. If you can have both, like Jerry Rice did, that's great.
That's a great take, and I think that you should probably put that up on Twitter as a Twitter poll question. I'm serious, because I think it shows a lot about different people and what drives them. Because for me, I would rather have Edelman's career, where I'm one of the guys. I played my role. I was an above-average player, but I got those championships to prove I made it to the top of the mountain. And I'd be interested to ask, like Calvin Johnson, would you trade your career, your first ballot Hall of Fame status,
or Barry Sanders,
or Barry Sanders, for Julian Edelman's Super Bowls and his playoff success? That's a really good question, Chad. I think when this show is live, I think we make that a Twitter poll question. Would you rather be a Hall of Famer or a 2-time Super Bowl champ?
If you had to choose.
If you had to choose between the two, yeah.
To me, I'm all about me.
That's fair. Hey, dude, that's fair, man. That's fair. That's how
one
some
of my
people
favorite.
are wired.
I wish I still had it. I'm going to try to track it down, because I'm trying to build my book collection, as you can see. And I used to have this book when I was a kid, and I was fascinated with stats and where guys played, and it was called The Greatest Players to Ever Play the Game. It's a little outdated now. I'm sure they've put out a new edition, and there was only 100 guys in there. And Julian Edelman they could put 500 guys in there, and Julian Edelman's name probably still wouldn't come up. And that's kind of my point of this segment. But I'd rather be in that book, man. Now, there's guys that, Joe Montana, he's going to be in both. He's going to be in both conversations. He's not everybody has that. But, again, Dan Marino, would you rather be Dan Marino or Eli Manning? I'd rather be Dan Marino. I'm not going to lie. I'd rather be, Dan Marino is a guy that he hasn't played. It's going to be going on 3 decades, since he's played, and we're still going to be talking about how great Dan Marino was. And I don't think anyone's going to sit there and talk about how Joe Flacco went off for one postseason and won a Super Bowl. I don't think I'd rather be Dan Marino. I'd rather be remembered as one of the best to ever do it, as a part of honey, I won this ring that one time. That's just me.
See, that's funny, though, because I guess I never really was a receiver guy. I was always, when I played pickup football, when I played a little bit of football I did play, I was always going out for quarterback. When you put it that way about Marino's career, versus someone like Eli Manning's career? Now I don't know. I genuinely don't know, because, man, that's a Twitter poll question, man. That's a good one, dude. I got to give you props on that.
And when you win that Super Bowl, that's where this Julian. The thing about it is, unless you live in Boston, you're not watching the Patriots every single week. And then the playoffs come around, and it's such a small sample size, but there's more eyes on it. So everybody's watching Julian Edelman in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And so that's what they see. But that's why you go and look at these numbers. Again, Hines Ward, who I, for a while there, said, you know what? Again, Hines Ward, someone who I think I would consider Hines Ward a really, not an elite player, not the best of the best. He's quite not on the Moss, Jerry Rice, Fitzgerald. He's not quite in there. But I would probably put Hines Ward in that next tier of really, really, really good receivers. And Hines Ward made 4 consecutive Pro Bowls. He had 1,300 yards on a team that was quarterbacked by Tommy Maddox. He wasn't catching passes from Tom Brady. He had 12 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns, 11. And again, that's where I judge these running backs and receivers is, can you get into the goddamn end zone? To me, great players score touchdowns. Yeah. Hines Ward had 85 career receiving touchdowns, and then he had another couple rushing touchdowns. Julian Edelman doesn't even have 40 career touchdowns. Yeah. It's not even a comparison. Hines Ward should be in the Hall of Fame way before Julian Edelman.
I agree with that, and I think my thing with Hines Ward, my argument for him is a little different because of the type of player that he was.
Yeah, why is he not getting? He's everything that everybody's saying that Julian Edelman is. And again, that's where I think maybe there's a small amount of the race factor here, and also there's a big anti-Steeler bias too. Don't get that twisted.
Yeah, there's so many Steelers in the Hall of Fame that
you've got to be tough-nosed, blocked. I mean, and I always said the blocking shit was overrated, but if you're the kind of guy that's saying, "Oh, well, we want to impose more of were you a team player and willing to do all," and he won a Super Bowl MVP, and he has all these great moments. Why?
That's why I think Hines Ward should be in the Hall of Fame, is because he took on the identity of the football team that he played for, and he used his skill set to make that team better. You've got a lot of guys who will, and I would put Randy Moss in this category, where he didn't use his skill set in Minnesota to make his team better. It wasn't until
I don't believe that.
It wasn't. Well, no, and I'm not saying that he was selfish. I'm just saying
when you score 16 touchdowns, you're making your team better.
I don't know that he never put the team before himself. We'll put it that way. And
we'll disagree to agree on that one.
And I love Randy Moss. When I was younger, I had a Randy Moss jersey. This isn't a shot at Randy Moss. I think that there's different players that are made up differently, and that's fine, because I think you need different types of players to win in the NFL. But I think what Hines Ward was able to do was able to take his skill set and morph it into something that made the Steelers better at what the Steelers did, and was still able to be a very good wide receiver while doing that. And because of that, that's why I say that he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Here, I'll give you one. What to end this? This is how far I'm willing to take this. I'm on the Hall of Fame committee, right? And they're like, "Hey, we're gonna put a receiver in." I would nominate Antonio Brown before I nominated Julian Edelman. Antonio Brown didn't just make 4 Pro Bowls. He made 4 All-Pros.
You can't say that. Well, I'm drinking, man. I know how much you dislike him. I
hate this dude. If he walked down the street right now, I'd open my window up and be like, "Hey, B, I fucking hate you, bitch." And then he'd probably throw gummy dicks at me.
Hey, man, that's one of my AB is one of my followers on Twitter. You better watch it.
But there's no doubt in my mind that Antonio Brown would deserve, and I'm not saying he does, but I would vote for Antonio Brown to get in the Hall of Fame because he when Antonio Brown was at the prime of his career, which lasted more than a few years. It wasn't just a playoff game here and there. It was
about 5 or 6 years where he was dominant.
Dominant. And the same with Julio Jones. The same with Julio. It was them too, really. They were kind of battling for it. And Calvin Johnson. And all those guys deserve to be in there. So, like, it's not Calvin Johnson's fault that he got drafted by the Lions. Mm-hmm. It's not his fault. You can't hold that against that guy.
I agree with that.
It's like Dominic Hasek in the NHL. You know, he didn't have as many cups. He played for the goddamn Sabres. What did you want him to do?
Yeah.
So we need to stop using team. If some guys' stats are that close to another player's, right? They're like, you look at the yards per game and all this stuff, and it's right there. Then maybe you can use, how did they play when they played against better defenses and better teams in the playoffs as a tiebreaker. But using championships and team accolades is so easily debunked because the minute you say that, I'm going to go, okay, so that means Trent Dilfer's better than Dan Marino. Yeah, and your whole argument is just shit at that point.
But we also see that and not to belabor this conversation, but we also see how the goalposts are moved when it's convenient, because one of the big detractors against Ben was how bad he played in the Super Bowl against Seattle.
And it's like, well, why does that overtake how good he was the 3 games?
The 3 games prior to, yeah.
It has more weight than 3 games, and that doesn't make any sense. My brain can't comprehend that.
And if you look at Ben that year and the year before, you could see the whole football team elevated when he became the quarterback.
Absolutely.
But he took them to a Super Bowl. I don't care how bad he played. He took them to a Super Bowl championship.
And he won. So it's like, again, and that's what it always changes, right? It always goes,
but then, when Trent Dilfer wins a Super Bowl on the back of the defense, arguably one of the top 3 defenses of all time, he won a Super Bowl and he deserves that. Yeah, but come on, man. He wasn't the reason they won. He wasn't even the starter at the beginning of that season.
And football's even worse when, like, you literally leave the field and have a whole set of other players come on the field to help you win or lose the game. Right. And you're like, yeah, well, they won. It's like, yeah, well, there's 21 other players.
The only sport that I will listen to the argument for championships that's a team sport is basketball.
Because there's only 5 guys.
There's 5 guys, and most of them are the stars are going to play 40+ minutes a game.
Yeah, absolutely.
In hockey, your stars are going to be on the ice 25 minutes tops.
Yeah,
that's
not
tops.
Even barely a third of the game. And it's like, well, he won more cups. It's like, bro, Mario Lemieux only won 2 cups. So you're telling me again, Jonathan Toews is better than Mario Lemieux, right? No, it's not close.
Hey, guess what? When the Oilers traded away Wayne Gretzky, they won 1 more cup, and he didn't win anymore.
I guess that means they were better without Gretzky.
That must mean that Gretzky was a product of the Oilers.
It's just so dumb, and I just again today I had someone who was like, Fleury's better than Lundqvist because he won 3 cups, and I'm like,
Fleury's my favorite hockey player.
Yeah, he wasn't even on the goddamn rink when they won the cup, the last 2. Like, it's just dumb.
Listen. You will not find a bigger Marc-Andre Fleury fan than me.
He's a great person.
I will defend that dude.
And he's having a great year too.
He is, and I think I lump him in with like the Chris Osgoods of the world, where like they're borderline. They won their Stanley Cup. They were a part of some really good teams. But was Marc-Andre Fleury ever a top 5 goalie in the NHL?
I mean, you'll see a bunch of Yinzers say yeah, but if you ask anybody outside,
let's be realistic. Let's look at his statistics. Let's look at his
top 5. There might have been, I think, maybe
a couple of years.
There was like 2 seasons where he might have been around 5. He was never a top 3 goalie though, never.
But so does that? That's the thing, man. Like, I don't know. As big of a Marc-Andre Fleury fan as I am, I don't know if that's enough to get him into the Hall of Fame. Now
he's going to get in because he has all those wins.
He has all the wins. If he finishes this season off the way he's been putting it together, that's going to, especially if he gets some Vezina votes this year, that's going to help him. So I think he's done enough to get in under the circumstances, but like, I wouldn't put him ahead. Like you said, I wouldn't put him ahead.
I'll say this: Marc-Andre Fleury deserves to be in the Hall of Fame in his sport before Julian Edelman deserves to be in his sport.
Yeah, we both agree there. Yeah. So